Honestly, when I saw Black Americans saying they are boycotting or they are ending or they are coming for this man, I was so happy because right from day one, I knew that this man was literally going to be a problem. I knew that this man was literally going to be a betrayer. I knew that this man literally did not want any good thing to come to the Black community. All in the name of he have a white wife. Jesus Christ. And I know that I'm going to be ruffling on a lot of people's shoulder because some people will literally said that, oh, it doesn't matter. What he said was actually good. But this is bringing Black Americans back to where they were literally coming from. For crying out loud, Black Americans have dealt with segregation, Jim Crow, redlining, East, West, North, and South. Why do we need to still deal with the same thing that we have literally dealt with? It's crazy. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sonia. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. And credits belong to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. I want to say a very big thank you to every single one of you liking, commenting, sharing, dropping super thanks, and also joining my membership. I do not take you guys for granted. You guys are absolutely the best. With that being said, let's go watch, guys. I'll be back with commentaries.
You ever meet a Black man that's so anti-Black you just feel like it's a setup? That's Clarence Thomas, the longest-serving judge on the Supreme Court, and the one most committed to rolling back the very rights that allowed him to rise. And his wife? That's the kind of white woman that's every Black woman's worst nightmare. But we'll get to her. So let's start at the beginning. Clarence Thomas was born in 1948 in Pinpoint, Georgia, dirt poor and Jim Crow raised. He grew up speaking Gullah, was raised Catholic, went to seminary, and almost became a priest. But racism followed him everywhere until he flipped. And I don't mean flipped the system. I mean flipped on us. By the time he reached Yale Law School, he started to resent affirmative action. Not the racism that made it necessary, but the fact that white folks assumed he didn't belong. Instead of challenging them, he decided to join them. And in the 1980s, he got cozy with the conservatives. Reagan appointed him to the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. But instead of protecting Black workers, this man gutted the very civil rights regulations that he was hired to enforce. Then George H.W. Bush made... Sorry, you can't make this shit up. Then George H.W. Bush made him a Supreme Court justice in 1991. They call it replacing Thurgood Marshall, but he's no replacement. He took the seat. And that's when Anita Hill happened. A brilliant Black woman came forward, under oath, and told...
And he has repaid Black people with scorn ever since. The important thing to know about his confirmation, other than the fact that he's accused credibly of sexual misconduct, is the polling that got him over the line. And it was the polling that I very much remember. I was one of the few Black folk who was against him. It was the polling that showed that about 7 in 10 Black people supported his ascension to the seat once held by the great Thurgood Marshall, and he is not his equal. It was Black people's support that got wavering members of that Judiciary Committee
Democrats,
and wavering senators.
They needed Democratic votes. It was a Democratic majority. That's why Joe Biden is in those hearings running. They needed the Democratic votes.
And it was only Black people's support in those polls that got wavering Democrats to vote for him. And he has repaid Black people with scorn ever since. Yep. He didn't even speak English until he was 7 years old. He spoke the Geechee tongue and was so afraid to speak in front of white people because he was always told, don't speak Geechee in front of white people because it would embarrass you, that he almost never spoke at all. There was a nun, a white nun, whose largesse helped get him through school and get him those good grades. He has been assisted by white patrons, really his whole life, even now by very rich ones, as they fly him around the country. And to your very point, he seems to deeply resent all of the assistance he got, and he wants to make sure that nobody like him ever gets that kind of help again, because it helps his self-image so that he can lie to himself and fool himself and maybe hate himself a little less for having gotten help all along his path to the Supreme Court.
Hey everyone, so we knew it was going to happen and it happened. The United States Supreme Court essentially gutted the Voting Rights Act. What does this mean? It means that now in all these different states, a lot of them in the South, these conservative legislatures are going to try to redraw the lines, redraw the maps around who can vote and who is going to be represented. What now is going to happen is it's going to be more difficult to challenge those laws that get passed that we know are intended to make it more difficult for you to have the representatives that you want at a local level, state level, and congressional level. And here's the bottom line. They may put all kinds of obstacles in. Let's not fall for it, because they know that the power is with the people. And they know that when people vote in their numbers, that's when change comes. This means checking your voter registration status. This means knowing where your polling place is. They will try to make it more difficult, but we cannot be deterred. People ask me, Kamala, why are you optimistic? I'm optimistic because I know the power is with the people. And I know that we're not going to let anybody take our power from us. So let's get out there and let's fight.
I'm gonna need y'all to sit down for just a little while we talk about this, okay? Just yesterday, the Supreme Court handed down a 6-3 decision that election law experts are calling one of the most damaging rulings in 100 years. And I promise you, a lot of people scrolling on their phones right now don't even have any idea that this happened. So let me break it down for you, all right? Plain, simple, no law degree required, all right? So let's start with the Voting Rights Act of 1965. That's a good starting point. After decades of Black Americans being blocked from the polls, poll taxes, literacy tests, violence, intimidation, you know the drill, Congress passed a law that said your vote will be protected and your vote will count, okay? That law was the crown jewel of the civil rights movement. Now, here's what you need to understand about how your vote gets counted or doesn't get counted. Every state gets divided into districts, okay? Each district elects one person to Congress. And whoever draws those district lines has enormous power, because you can draw them to give a community a voice, or you can draw them to silence that same community. Stay with me. Louisiana has nearly 1/3 Black population. And after the 2020 census, the Republican-controlled legislature drew a map with 5 majority white districts and only 1 majority Black district. Black voters sued. And courts agreed that the map was unfair. And Louisiana was ordered to draw a second majority Black district, and they did. A Black man by the name of Cleo Fields won that seat in November of 24. Then a group of white voters sued and said, you can't draw districts with race in mind, even to fix discrimination. Never mind that that's what they had done in the first place, okay? And yesterday, the Supreme Court agreed with them, 6-3, along party lines. Now, I know what some of y'all are thinking, but don't we still get to vote? Don't we still get to vote? Yes. And here's why that's not the whole story. Imagine your neighborhood has, let's say, 40 Black voters who all want the same candidate. Stay with me. But somebody splits you across 4 different districts, 10 of you in each one. Now, in every single district, your community is outnumbered. Your candidate loses in all 4. Every single person voted. Every vote was counted, and you got 0 representation. That is vote dilution, and that is exactly what the Voting Rights Act was designed to stop. The Supreme Court just made it nearly impossible to challenge maps that do exactly that. Justice Sotomayor said in her dissent that this ruling greenlights redistricting plans that will disable minority communities. One of the nation's top election law scholars called what remains of the Voting Rights Act a hollow shell. just a hollow shell. The ballot box is still open, beloved. They just quietly picked the power clean out of it. And this isn't a partisan talking point, okay? This is history happening right now in real time, and you deserve to know it. You deserve to know all about it. So share this, talk about it, because an uninformed people can't defend their own freedom. What to do? Stay informed, stay engaged, and above all else, do not stay silent.
Wow, what a beautiful day for getting my voting rights taken away from me. Sit the fuck down. In case no one's fucking paying attention, the Supreme Court just basically got rid of the Voting Rights Act, which essentially means they are redrawing a map of who can vote. Who do you think they want to vote? Oh, white people, right. Who do you think they don't want to vote? Me. And people like me. Minorities' rights are directly in the line of fire. They are trying to take away my voting rights. I am a young black woman. I just turned 19. I just got to vote. I've only voted twice for state elections. I didn't even get to vote for the presidential fucking election. Who knows if I'll be able to vote in the next presidential election? It is that fucking serious. It is that fucking serious. And if you voted for him, fuck you. And all you white women don't think you're fucking safe either. They're gonna get rid of you too. You think they're gonna let women keep voting? Fuck no! Fuck no!
Okay, but do y'all actually understand what the Supreme Court just did? Okay, so remember how after slavery ended, they tried everything to stop black folk from using the vote that they just died for? Poll taxes, literary tests, grandfather clauses, bitch, all of it. So in 1965, they passed the Voting Rights Act to say specifically that you cannot do that anymore. That law is the whole reason why black districts exist in the first place. The whole reason why we have black congresspeople at all. Now fast forward to Louisiana. 1/3 of that whole state is black. 1/3. But then when Republicans drew the map for who represents who in Congress, they drew it so that black voters only controlled 1 out of 6 districts. A girl, 1 out of 6. That's illegal. And a court literally told them that's illegal. Fix it. So they fixed it and added a second black district. Then somebody turned around and sued that map, saying that it was a racial gerrymander. And today, the Supreme Court agreed. See, but here's where they got slick, because they said we didn't kill the Voting Rights Act. We just clarified what it means. But what they meant, what they clarified is that if you want to prove that somebody is diluting your vote, you now have to prove that they meant to do that. Like their purpose, their intention was to dilute your vote. That they meant to do that to you on purpose. And you got to bring receipts. You have to prove it. Girl, do you know how hard that is to prove? Like, these politicians do not put "let's suppress black votes" in writing. What they will say is something like, we're protecting Republican incumbents. And guess what? Today, the court said if it's partisan, it's legal. Even if it falls entirely on black voters. Even if the results look identical to Jim Crow era maps. Partisan cover is now legal cover. That's it. That's the ruling. And bitch, this is not some abstract future thing. Analysts are already saying this could flip 19 majority-minority seats. That means that this could put white candidates in the 15 seats that are currently being held by black congresspeople. You know when the last time something like that happened? After Reconstruction. When the white folk violently pushed black people out of the government. And that's the comparison that's being made by a Supreme Court justice in her dissent. Because 3 justices pushed back hard against this. Ketanji, because we already know, Kagan, and Sotomayor. And Kagan said, this is what she literally wrote. She said the majority just completed the demolition of the Voting Rights Act. She said a state can now, with 0 legal consequences, systemically dilute the voting power of minority citizens. She called it the biggest rollback of minority representation since Reconstruction. A Supreme Court justice said that in official legal writing, and it still passed 6-3. But here's what needs to be understood, because the news is not going to connect these dots for you. This is not the first time they've done this. That's right. In 2013, they gutted the other part of the Voting Rights Act, the part that made certain states have to get federal permission before they started changing voting rules. States with a documented history of discrimination. Gone. And the minute that happened, voter ID laws exploded. Polling places closed and lines for the voting booth got longer in Black neighborhoods overnight. But today they finished what they started then. Both teeth got pulled today. So the law still exists on paper, but it can't bite now. Florida, Alabama, South Carolina, they were literally waiting on this ruling. Like, they had the new maps ready. Baby, Texas already redrew our map. These states are about to go crazy redrawing their district maps. And there is now almost nothing anybody can do about it in court, because you can't prove intent. And even if you could, they'll say it was partisan. Loop closed. No more loophole. So the next time somebody tells y'all, oh, just go vote, like it fixes everything, please understand what happened today. They are currently engineering the maps so that they will function in a way that your vote will count and matter less than it already does when you do show up. This is not paranoia. This is a 6-3 Supreme Court ruling that came down today, Wednesday, April 29th, 2026. Baby, this is the bad place.
I've never seen a man hate his race so much than Clarence Thomas. Like, what is wrong with you, bro? The door was open for you and he just shut it down for everyone else. Locked, bricked, everything. If you're not white, he does not want you. My boy, like, are you seeing yourself in the mirror? Like,
Supreme Court. Supreme Court. 6 of you are going to pay, because the blood stains on your black robes will never wash away. Your seeds will never harvest. Only shame will trickle down. You'll go down in history, but only for worshiping a clown. Oh, yes. You worship a clown. All that pomp and circumstance. You worship a clown. It will trickle down to your own. What's up?
Thank you. I want to thank my boy here for putting this out there. Thomas, Clarence, why do we never see you? I always look at you in that panel and say, this guy's going to represent us. You know, he's going to represent the black people. He's going to represent the minority people. But you're not. You never do. And I hope you get this fucking message this man is sending out, because I'm glad somebody's saying it. You are a disgrace to black people. You are a disgrace to every minority population in this state, in this country. You have never stood up for the black people. You have never, ever donated. You have never done anything to benefit the black community. And I wonder why you're there. What do you represent? Because Sonia Sotomayor represents the Spanish people. Even if you would have voted towards saving this act, they still would have fucking won. But no. Listen to this message. I hope you get it.
This message is for Justice Clarence Thomas. You are a piece of shit. We know you hate the black community, but the black community hates you even more. You had the nerve, as black as you is, to vote down the Civil Rights Act, knowing you grew up in a time where you saw how white people were treating black people, but yet you somehow think you a fucking white man. They only using your dumb ass to get shit like this done. You think they give a goddamn about you? You think when they see you, they think of you as one of theirs? You black as they get, but yet you does nothing to help the black community. You don't go to black towns and speak to them. You don't donate to no black causes to make black lives better. What you do is you take your black ass on them yachts with them rich white men and eat the good food, drink the best wine, have them pay for homes, 250,000 homes, give you homes, because they know you're going to always vote with the white man. How is it possible that you grew up in the era of Jim Crow, when you saw they didn't want black people to vote at all, when you saw black people getting hosed down, beaten by dogs, put in jail, beaten, but yet when you become a justice, everything that you fucking does is for the white man. So we know you hate us, but we hate you even more. And when I talk to the youngsters in the program that I be having, I show them a picture of a black man of not to be. Don't ever be Justice Clarence Thomas. He is the coon of all coons. And you done did it, my brother. You done gave the white man everything they wanted. You done gutted the health care. You done gutted the Civil Rights Act. You're trying to take away gay marriage. Every fucking thing that helps the black community, your black ass votes down. How long you got, man? Ain't you about 80, 90 years old? How fucking long do you got, man? Because we are sick and tired of you. And this was the icing on the cake when you voted with them white people to shoot down the Civil Rights Act. Some shit Martin Luther King fucking died for it. And you was in that era and you saw all that shit, but yet your black ass still voted down the Civil Rights Act. So the community will never see you. We never saw you in the community. We will never see you because you're too busy cozying up to the rich white people. But you're going to go down this history, Justice Clarence Thomas, as the worst black man of all time. That's why we hate you black Republicans. You're always going against black folks. You have nothing to offer the black community. None of y'all. Tim Scott, Byron Donalds, y'all have nothing to offer the black community. Y'all are the most dangerous people to the black community, and this shows it, Justice Clarence Thomas. So I'm sick of this man, y'all. I don't know if y'all sick of him, but I surely am sick of these black Republicans. So please, y'all, follow me on YouTube at Boosie Sanders as I transition off this app. Because this app ain't what it used to be. So please follow me, y'all. Just go over to YouTube, go to Boosie Sanders and follow me over there, because you're going to get most of my content. But as of now, fuck all you black Republicans. Fuck all y'all.
I don't think that there is a bigger downgrade in black history than from Thurgood Marshall to Clarence Thomas, who decided on the 70th anniversary of Brown versus Board of Education, the legislation that literally said that separate but equal was not constitutional. This guy would have the audacity to pipe up and leave a bad review. Mind you, his rebuke comes at a really interesting time. According to Axios, Thomas attacked the Brown decision in a concurrence opinion that allowed South Carolina to keep using a congressional map that critics say discriminated against black voters, which is really on brand for the Supreme Court's version of Uncle Ruckus. If you know, you know. Why it's also really interesting timing? Remember how I said that Clarence Thomas was Thurgood Marshall's replacement on the Supreme Court? It was, in fact, Thurgood Marshall, the first black Supreme Court justice, who was the lead lawyer in the Brown case. Going back to attempt to undo what your predecessor did, not beating the Uncle Ruckus allegations.
America has only been a true democracy since 1965. And we are reverting back now. We're reverting back. And the fact that this man was one of the Supreme Court justices who voted for this is a travesty. How is he still on the bench? How? 38 destination vacations, 26 private jet flights, all paid for. Luxury yachts. This man has been living it up in his 35 years on the court. From 1998 through 2003, Thomas accepted $42,200 in gifts, making him the top gift recipient on the court at the time by about $36,000. No one was even close. After the LA Times highlighted these gifts in 2004, Thomas stopped reporting them on his financial disclosure forms. He just stopped reporting them. The corruption runs deep. A disgrace. A disgrace. When I watched the movie Get Out, all I could think about was this man right here. I thought it was about him. I thought it was a documentary about him.
Clarence Thomas had no problem walking through every door that was created for him because of his race. And that gratitude is followed by him shutting the door behind him for everybody else.
Today was not such a good day for me. Everything was just going wrong. I get home, I get on social media, and I see that the Supreme Court has struck down parts of the Voting Rights Acts that specifically would kill like the black vote in the South. Now, I'm not affected per se because that blue dot that you see on that map in Georgia is Atlanta. But still, it's just like, I wonder, do people who are not black understand how it must feel for us walking every day through life, realizing that people hate us simply for breathing air and that our skin is darker. Like, I can't now, different people, women get hate, Asians get hate, Hispanics get hate, but the hate with the vitriol that people feel for black people, what did we ever do to y'all? What did we ever fucking do to deserve the hate? And added on to that, I haven't said much about it. I haven't said anything about it, the whole Clay and Meg situation. And it's not that, it's parasocial or anything. It is the reaction that I have seen from men who look like me and the things that they have said. And hearing white supremacy come out of a black mouth. And seeing today a black man vote to strip black people from their votes, it has been too fucking much. It has been too much. To hear white supremacist talking points and ideologies coming out of a black mouth has been too much for me today. And as a black woman, I'm constantly asking myself, where is a soft place to land? And I never get a fucking answer.
Just when you thought things couldn't get any worse, one man reminds you of how much worse the US is about to get. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas just said precedent, those past rulings that make the law consistent, might just be, quote, something someone dreamt up and others went along with. That's like your teacher saying, the rules about grading, just vibes. Basically, he's saying all the old laws and past decisions might not matter anymore. You thought the law had rules? Nope. It's improv now. He even said precedent shouldn't be treated like the gospel, which is kind of funny coming from a guy who's supposed to treat the Constitution like it's the Bible. But that word gospel is important because it means he thinks all the old rulings aren't sacred. So things you thought were settled, like marriage equality, voting rights, even how the government works, those could all get reopened. Imagine playing Monopoly for 200 years and suddenly the banker goes, you know, free parking? I don't believe in it anymore. That was just something someone dreamt up. And this comes as the Supreme Court is set to review whether the president should be able to fire agency officials whenever he wants, basically deciding if the White House gets to be the boss of everyone, no questions asked, whether state voting maps can still be drawn in ways that dilute black voting power, so whether your vote actually counts depending on where you live, and whether states can stop licensed therapists from performing so-called conversion therapy on minors, which somehow has to be argued all the way to the Supreme Court in 2025. In short, they are taking on cases that could reshape who holds power, who gets a voice, and who gets protected. This court could basically start saying that old rule doesn't feel right. Let's make a new one, which is fine if we're talking about board games, but this is actual law. The whole point of following precedent is so that every time the court changes players, the rules don't change. Otherwise, it's chaos. So yeah, when Clarence Thomas says old rulings aren't gospel, what he really means is buckle up. The Supreme Court might be about to remix America's laws like a bad DJ with too much power and no headphones. Let me know in the comments how you're planning on getting through the next 3 years, because honestly, I'm all out of ideas.
If I could go back in time and stop my 11-year-old self from writing that report about Clarence Thomas and how much of an inspiration he was to me and young African-American children all around the country, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Because everything I wrote in that report feels like a bald-faced lie right now. Because what I wrote about was the idea of Clarence Thomas. You know, I wrote about the fantasy of Clarence Thomas. But Clarence Thomas is the reason why so many black Americans use that turn of phrase, not all skin folk are kinfolk. If you want a frame of reference for exactly who somebody like Clarence Thomas is, watch Django. Watch Samuel Jackson's character. That's Clarence Thomas. For someone to take advantage of every opportunity presented to them, allowing him to climb from the meager beginnings that he started with to the highest court in the land, to sit there and be the second black man to serve on the Supreme Court after someone like Thurgood Marshall, knowing everything that someone like Thurgood Marshall did for the progress of the black community, whether it was him being a Supreme Court justice that upheld the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, whether it was him being somebody that fought for the ruling of Brown versus Board of Education. The legacy that someone like Thurgood Marshall left on this country, it is insulting to compare someone like Clarence Thomas to him. Because Clarence Thomas has very clearly decided that every opportunity afforded to him should not and will not be afforded to other people in his own community. Clarence Thomas, and a lot of people like to say that, you know, not all black Americans are Democrats, you know. He's one of those people that I'm sure talks about the Democratic plantation and how we're all not a monolith. Not all black people are Republicans, and we all don't need to fall in line with the Democratic Party. Well, guess what? The Democratic Party is not currently in 2026 trying to take our rights away. And before I hear any of you talk about this whole Democrats were the ones who started slavery, and Democrats were the ones who did this, Democrats did that, when you know for a fact that there was a party switch based off the civil rights movement in 1965, and you know for a fact that because the Democrats of that time knew they were not going to succeed politically if they did not switch to Republican, then I really don't know why we even engage in these conversations. Because if you ignore that fact, you're telling me that you're somebody who is disingenuous. You're telling me that you're somebody that does not truly care about the black community thriving here in America. And you, just like Clarence Thomas, are perfectly okay with getting whatever small opportunities are given to you and watching the rest of us have them taken away because you think that you're one of the good ones and you're never going to run into the consequences that the rest of us run into. But I guarantee you will. And I guarantee Clarence Thomas will. If these people get any and everything they actually want from our government and from this society, Clarence Thomas will be thrown right out with the rest of us. And I'm sure he will be just as confused as to why this is happening to him when he played a significant role in denying us our proper representation.
All I can really think about saying about the Supreme Court's decision yesterday with the Voting Rights Act is this didn't happen overnight. Republicans have been chipping away at this for years. Certain events definitely played in their favor. And all that chipping got to the point where they were able to get a conservative supermajority on the court. Roe v. Wade got overturned because of it. And now this happens. And, I guess I'll end this video by saying, I bet Clarence Thomas wakes up every morning and looks in the mirror and is upset that he sees a black man looking back at him.
I just want you all to know I am so angry by this Supreme Court decision that has effectively gutted the Voting Rights Amendment, stripping away political power for so many black and brown people across this country. And let me tell you why it's personal to me. Because here you see my dad, Henry, who in 1965 marched from Selma to Montgomery to protest voting rights discrimination. My dad, Henry, wrote this essay to talk about his experience, how when he got to Alabama, he was met with armed federalized troops, how as he marched, he was called the N-word and so much more. And all of it was because he believed, like I do, that every American should have equal access to the ballot box. And I can tell you that I lost my dad in November of last year as I'm on this journey of running for the United States Senate. And my dad today is likely rolling over in his grave at the thought that this Supreme Court is not only rubber stamping this president's authoritarian agenda, but they have rolled back 60 plus years of progress that people like my father have fought for. And I can tell you when I get to the United States Senate, I'm going to fight to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. And I'm always going to fight for your right to vote.
Leveling up your wife or partner is a theme that is constantly shown in fiction, such as The Wolf of Wall Street, but Justice Thomas might have done it in real life. Before any of his power on the United States Supreme Court, there was Kathy Ambush. When asked why he married her, he said, because she was the first woman that was nice to me. They met in college and he proposed during his junior year of college and they married a day after graduation. They then moved into student housing for married couples while he attended Yale Law School. Right after Yale, Thomas is struggling with job offers and he keeps getting rejection letters. He blames affirmative action and puts a 10-cent sticker on his Yale law degree and says that is what this is worth, and to this day he still has a stack of rejection letters. The couple has a son very early on in their marriage and they are struggling financially and he has a lot of debt. There are rumors that he would use his student loan money to drink. He moves the family to Washington to pursue a career possibly in government. In his own words, he says, moving to Washington had done nothing to ease the dissatisfaction I felt with my marriage. I hated myself for my inability to be the loving, devoted husband Kathy deserved. I grew despondent and resigned. I drank heavily than ever before. I knew I was on the road to trouble. During this period, there is a relationship between him and another woman. She claims it became intimate during the divorce proceedings. However, to find someone so quickly after your marriage when your divorce is not even finalized, I don't know, it raises some eyebrows to me. She has described him as someone that is willing to do whatever it takes to get to success. Essentially, a Slytherin. Also recently has came out and said that he used to be into really weird things sexually and they used to explore that together, which has more to do with the Anita Hill controversy. I digress. Anyway, he left his first wife in 1981 and the divorce was finalized in 1984. They had spent over a decade together, and as his career was finally starting to move, he abandoned her. He then meets Ginny Thomas, and he marries her in 1987, 3 years later. He marries her within months. Thomas also used to be against interracial marriages himself, yet he is now in one and has been ever since he married her. They also decided not to have any kids together because he felt it would be too difficult for him to be on the court and have a child. They did adopt his nephew as his own son. However, now they are estranged from the nephew and he is facing charges in prison. The nephew has come out and said he wishes they would talk to him, but they don't even check in on him, and he has barely seen them even though they technically raised him. However, this couple, I guess they're a match made in heaven because she was very against women's rights and the liberation of women, while he is very against movements for Black people. So if you think about it, they fit together pretty perfectly if you ignore the contradictions that is Justice Thomas's life. He used to support Malcolm X. He was fond of MLK. He was against interracial marriage. As for his wife, when she got married to Justice Thomas, she did not even tell her family she was marrying a Black man. But one of her family members said, "Oh, once we got to know him, we realized he's good." However, she isn't as contradictory as Justice Thomas is. So yeah, there's a story of our power couple on the US Supreme Court. Behind every successful man is a wife he abandoned.
Okay, y'all, let's talk about how Clarence Thomas benefited from affirmative action throughout his career. We know Clarence Thomas was a major player in the Supreme Court's ruling to end affirmative action at colleges today. But did you know if it wasn't for affirmative action, he wouldn't be where he is today? I want to give a shout out to Bishop Talbert Swan for detailing Clarence Thomas's career here. Let's read. Clarence Thomas was admitted to Holy Cross in 1968, in part because the school was actively looking for Black students. He was admitted into Harvard Law School in 1971, right after it adopted the race-conscious admissions policy, but chose to go to Yale at the exact moment it created its first explicit affirmative action program with a goal of 10% minority enrollment. Thomas was one of 12 Black students in the class of 175. His application was evaluated separately, and he received special consideration because he was Black. When Thomas left Yale, he was hired by John Danforth, the Attorney General of Missouri. Danforth admitted it was because he was seeking to have a diverse office, and that Clarence Thomas was hired because he was Black. Thomas left Danforth's office to work for Monsanto at the time when the company was looking to hire Black lawyers. He went back to work for Danforth when he was a U.S. Senator and was looking to diversify his staff. He then went to work for Reagan's Department of Education and was offered the job in part because he was Black. He then became chairman of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, a position that 6 Black women turned down before he accepted it. You see, in my opinion, this is what happens when you become successful and Republican. You forget how you got to where you are, and you forget your people who are still striving to achieve greatness. You see, great men like George Washington Carver did not have affirmative action like Clarence Thomas. Despite George Washington Carver's good grades, scholarship, he was rejected because of his race. And I can hear some of you now saying, well, you know, he still was a great man and he made it. Yeah, but look how hard he had to try. And look how hard our kids coming along will have to try in order to make it. And even if the colleges take off the race off the application, what's going to stop these colleges that don't have any oversight now from discriminating against somebody's name that sounds African American?
You know, I didn't get a chance to speak out against, the situation with the Voting Rights Act, and the Supreme Court justices. But one in particular, Clarence Thomas. The fact that this man is a black man. And as we know, he probably grew up in the most difficult time and watched his black people suffer and go through things not even imaginable. And for him to vote with those other 5 justices to come for the Voting Rights Act, I don't understand that. I don't understand it. And the look that I would have for him if I saw him, yes, because that makes no sense. What a complete disgrace. And that saying, not all skin folk is kinfolk, baby, that's definitely him.
Here's a guy who, by his own admission, and there should be no shame in this, by the way, got into Yale Law School because of affirmative action. I think that was fabulous. I think nothing wrong with it. He apparently is ashamed of it, so much so that once he became a jurist on the courts, he decided his first and foremost obligation, apparently, was to help usher out the very programs that had opened the door for him. I'm not sure how to think about that except to believe that that is someone who does not have a problem with the system of white supremacy that marginalizes other black folks, as long as he got his. And he got his, and then he got out and basically said, that's it, we're done with that. I think if you look at his rulings, and particularly if you contrast his behavior as a judge and as a justice with the man he replaced on the court, Thurgood Marshall, you know, it's very interesting to see that one of the greatest jurists in American history when it comes to civil rights and when it comes to human rights and progressivism was replaced by one of the most reactionary justices, because George H.W. Bush knew that you had to replace the black justice with another black justice. He didn't want to replace him, however, with the black justice that had a connection to the movement, that had a connection to the struggle. So he found one that had no connection to the struggle, and if anything, was ready to spit on the struggle. You look at what Clarence Thomas has said in these voting rights cases. He is perfectly prepared, apparently, to uproot the Voting Rights Act of 1965 because he thinks, as do many of his white colleagues, that we can trust the states that have a history of racism to just do everything right, which of course is absurd. The only reason they've been doing things right lately is because there's a law in place that forces them to do things right. And as Justice Ginsburg said, to say that you can get rid of that law just because it's working right now is like saying that I don't need my umbrella when it's raining because I'm not getting wet. Now, you're not getting wet because you got an umbrella. That's why.
Clarence Thomas never misses an opportunity to disappoint me. In a 6-3 decision today, the Supreme Court voted to dismantle the Voting Rights Act. 6 conservative justices, including Clarence Thomas, voted to disenfranchise millions of black voters, voters of color all across America. And all of them should be held accountable, don't get me wrong here. But specifically Clarence Thomas, being only one of 2 black justices, the only black man on the court, votes to dismantle the voting rights of his own community? The same community that worked for decades to uplift black voters and black voices in our government votes to then go undermine all of that work. That's despicable. Am I surprised? No. Am I disappointed? Always. But this issue just really blows my mind. The cognitive dissonance he can have sitting on the highest court of the land, never has to worry about getting elected, makes a decision that makes it so much more difficult for black voices to be amplified in our government. Shame on you, Clarence Thomas. Shame on you.
I really do not know why a lot of people did not see this on time, but right from time, I know that Clarence Thomas was actually a red flag to black people. Like, I have never seen him as someone that has literally supported the black community, even with the influence that he has. And I feel like one of the greatest reasons is because he actually wanted to please his white wife, as far as I'm concerned. So even when this literally happened, and I saw a lot of black Americans saying, oh, we are boycotting him, we're boycotting Thomas, we're boycotting. See that in one or going to happen, because let it make sense to me that including all of the black struggles, there is nothing this man really wants to trend with, but this man wants to trend with the fact that he has to stand with our betrayers. As far as I'm concerned, those are our betrayers. He wants to stand with our betrayers, and he expects the black community to still come cheer for him. I know that, yeah, there are some black communities that will cheer for him, and I really do not care about that. But for the fact that this man literally have to be in that court and also rule against this, it's crazy. It's crazy. And why I'm not also surprised again is the fact that I see some black content creators as well. Some black Americans content creators will tell you, oh, that is absolutely the best. I don't know where that best is actually coming from. I don't know where they got that particular words called best, because what I literally know is the best is looking at our struggles and then looking at black people and taking their voting rights away from them. Oh my God. For as much as you can boycott, honestly, people should boycott that man. You push anything you people literally feel like you people want to do as at this point, just go ahead and do it, because that man did not deserve any good thing coming from the black community. What's that? You were the only person. You were supposed... It's crazy, honestly. I'm so pissed. The moment I saw that videos flying on my clips on TikTok, I became so pissed, and I started asking questions like, when did we get to the point of realizing that every single thing you did for these white folks, I'm sorry to say, to some of these white folks, they will literally not appreciate your efforts. That's Destiny's this thing. Take it to her room. They will literally not appreciate your efforts. You put it in the laundry basket. They will not. And it's crazy. It's crazy, honestly. And I felt so bad. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and credits belong to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. I want to say a very big thank you to every single one of you, liking, commenting, sharing, dropping super thanks, and also joining my membership. I do not take you guys for granted. You guys are absolutely the best. And yes, guys, with that being said, with no further ado, I do like I always say in my videos, I'm going to be saying bye, and I'll see you guys in my next one. For now, bye guys. I love you guys. Mwah.